أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. واللعنة الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: والمؤمنون والمؤمنات بعضهم أولياء بعض يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة ويطيعون الله ورسوله أولئك سيرحمهم الله إن الله عزيز حكيم. صلوات عليك. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send His barakat to you on this day, which is the birth anniversary of Sibt Akbar, the first grandson of the Prophet of Islam, the waris and the heir of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, Al-Imam Hassan Al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wa salam. In the language of the poets of the East, Imam Hassan alayhi salam is described as Shahzadeh Amn, the Prince of Peace. And this is basically a reflection of his peace treaty in order to maintain primarily the survival of the Shia community at that time in a very dangerous situation, that if he had not signed that peace treaty, the entire community had been wiped out. And the second was to maintain and prevent further bloodshed between the members of the Ummah. Keeping that perspective in mind, I would like to take this opportunity to talk about the involvement of individuals in community affairs. We had to realize when we talk about Islam, Islam is not a religion of individuals. Islam is a religion of a community. On a global level, it is known as Ummah. Whether we like it or not, whether we fill in the form of application for membership in the Ummah, we are. Any Muslim, by definition, is part of the global Ummah. If you look at the daily prayers, even there, Surah Fatiha, when we recite, Iyyaka na'budu, it is in plural terms. O Allah, we worship only you. Even you, when you are alone, when you do that namaz, you still use the word na'budu. We worship, we seek help from you. To emphasize the point that this religion is not religion of individuals, it is religion of a community. Congregational prayers, the way they have been emphasized, weekly Friday prayer, all these are there in order to promote that sense of community among the members of the Ummah. Even our first Imam, during the time between Zarbat and Shahadat, when he gathered his family members together, besides the personal advice and the will that he made one wasiyat, which was not of a personal kind. He addressed his two sons, Hassan and Hussein primarily, and then the members of the family, and then he says that this advice is for everyone to whom this wasiyat of mine reaches to them. Means even to those who will read this 1400 years after this. And so it's a will and a wasiyat addressing us also. In the very first part of it, he says, I advise you to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Usikum bi taqwallah. Immediately after taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it says, وَالنَّزْمَ أَمْرِكُمْ. Be organized in your affairs. And after that, he says that to keep your affairs in order and to maintain good relations among yourselves. And then he quotes a hadith of the Prophet there. He says that I have heard your grandfather, referring to Hassan and Hussein, that I have heard your grandfather saying to maintain good relations with others in the community is better than the general prayers and fasting. And this is where we see the importance of organizing ourselves as a community and to maintain the relationship among the members of the community. And this advice of Amir al-Mu'mineen is not addressed to a specific group. It applies to everyone, to men and women, to adults and seniors, and to youths and young adults. Everyone is part of this community. Everyone has to be organized. Everyone has to be concerned for the well-being of the community. The role of young adults in the community. And that's what I would like to focus this evening in the name of our second Imam. Even in the life of the Prophet. If you look at the early days in Mecca, there was a prominent group from Medina who came to Mecca during the time of Hajj. They met the Prophet, heard the message from him, accepted Islam. Next year they came again with a larger group, and this was all done secretly away from the eyes of the people of Mecca. Second time when they came, they asked the Prophet, can you send a teacher of Quran and Islam for us so that we can promote this faith among the people of Medina even more? This is even before the migration of the Prophet from Mecca to Medina. Whom did the Prophet select? He selected a young adult by the name of Mus'ab bin Umair, who in a way resembled the Prophet, and he was killed in the Battle of Uhud. And he was the first muballigh, official muballigh of Islam, selected by the Prophet, was a young adult who knew the Quran, knew the basics of Islam those days, and he was sent with them to go to Medina, and he was instrumental in preparing the ground of this city of Medina for the arrival of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Our own second Imam, if you look at his life, of course he was an Imam, he's from the Ahlul Bayt. But I'll give you one or two examples that even in the eyes of those who were opponents of the Ahlul Bayt, Hassan in a very young age was considered worthy enough to be involved in some important affairs of the Ummah. When the second Khalifa was fatally wounded, before he dies, he appoints a committee of 6 individuals, known as Shura. It's a long story. We don't want to go into details of it, whether it was right or wrong or what happened. And this 6 members committee was supposed to select the next Khalifa. And interestingly, he included Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib as one of the 6 members of the Shura. However, it was engineered in a way that Ali wouldn't get the chance anyway. But there was a reason why Ali accepted to join in. Again, that's for some other time. Besides the 6 individuals who were part of that committee from whom the Khalifa would be selected, he also appointed 3 individuals who will be the managers or organizers of that committee, and whose function would be more like advisors and observers without voting rights in that process. One of that individual that he named for that was Imam Hassan bin Ali wa Fatema alayhi salatu wa salam. How old is he at the time? 20 years. 20 years, young adult from the Islamic perspective. But he was considered even by the opponents worthy enough to be placed in that position. During the time of Uthman, the third Khalifa, if you look at the process where there were many people who opposed his policies, the injustice in the distribution of Baytul Mal, how it was being used by Banu Umayyah. One of the vocal opponents of this third Khalifa was Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, the prominent companion of the Prophet. And he was sent by Uthman to Syria. There also he continued to be vocal against Muawiyah. Muawiyah sent him back to Medina. Finally, Uthman decides to exile him to an isolated place. And when this order was issued, the people of Medina were ordered, nobody is allowed to go to bid farewell to Abu Dharr when he leaves the city of Medina. Nobody went. It was Ali who stood up and basically opposed the orders of the Khalifa. And he didn't go alone. He took his young men from the family as well as some of the prominent companions of his. They went for, bidding farewell to Abu Dharr. Even though Marwan bin Hakam, the secretary and son-in-law of Uthman, came and told them, don't you know the order of the Khalifa? And Amir al-Mu'minin just, moved him away from the way. And he was very clear about it. Historians have quoted the wordings of Ali in how he did Khuda Hafizi with Abu Dharr, how he praised him for his protest against the injustice of the Khalifa and the policies of Khalifa. And the second quotation that we have from historians are the words uttered by Imam Hassan bin Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. So you see his young age as a youth adult, active in social, political issues of the community and the ummah. And Imam Hassan, when he was in that age, 20s and early 30s, he was a worthy deputy of his father in many, many events. When you look at the time when the Muslims put the house of Uthman under siege as a protest against his policies, and when Amir al-Mu'minin realized that they have even prevented food and water from going to the house of Uthman, Amir al-Mu'minin sent his sons with a group of other youths of Banu Hashim to go and take food and water to the house of Uthman. Not that he was against those who were protesting, no, but he did not agree with the process of denying food and water to the Khalifa. And he made Hassan in charge of this matter. He said, take your swords, even if you have to fight your way to take food and drink to the house of the Khalifa. Even in the battle of Jamal and Siffin, Hassan played an important role on behalf of his father. When they were going towards Basra to confront the group of Talha and Zubair along with Aisha, Amir al-Mu'minin realized that he didn't have enough members. So he's, camped before reaching to Basra. And he sent a couple of individuals to Kufa to get reinforcement. They came back, not successful, because the governor at that time was basically a person in between, kind of neutral, saying, oh, I'm not with Ali and not with others. And so Imam Ali then sent Hassan. He went there, met the people of Kufa, gave some very, powerful speech, until he was able to galvanize about 7,000 to 10,000 soldiers from Kufa who came and joined the army of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawatullah. So getting involved in the affairs of the community, even for young adults, is nothing unusual in Islam. It is part of the tradition of Islam. It is part of the tradition of Shiaism. It is part of the example in the seerah of Imam Hassan Al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wassalam. Of course, working in a community is not easy. And I'm told by some of the leaders of the community about the concern that the youth and the young adults basically don't want to participate. And when they talk to them, they are told that they are basically put off any kind of involvement when they look at what goes on in the general meetings and the discussions around the town, online and offline. The language they see, the attitude they see, the body language they observe puts the young adults off this whole idea of getting involved in the affairs of the community. And this is what I would like to briefly talk about, because you have to remember, and this is for those who say, well, when you look this, when you see that kind of an environment, you don't want to get involved. My advice to the youths and especially the young adults is that you live in a community. A community consists of all kinds of people with different temperaments and natures and attitudes. You cannot look for what is known as Al-Madinatul Fazila, in the words of Farabi, one of the philosophers of Islam, talking about the ideal city. If you're looking for the ideal community, it doesn't exist anywhere. A community consists of all kinds of people. Even Rasulullah had to deal with people he didn't like, but they were there till the last day of his life, even after that. And so, the issue is not that we can, run away. No, you have to get involved. And you have to reform from within. Not this issue of separating and then having, either isolate yourself from the community, separate oneself from the community, or end up forming another group. Because then you'll have a third one, and then you'll have the fourth one. At least, and I would say that this community, among the Khoja brothers in the community in general, in spite of all the differences, we don't have this fitna of starting a new Jamaat and a third and the fourth. Maintain that unity. Stay within. Even if there are problems, there is no ideal city anywhere. Wherever you go, you will see problems. And try to reform from within. And what is the method of reforming? According to the Islamic principles of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. Promoting goodness among one another. Preventing evil from one another. Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar is the principle on which to get involved in the community affairs. And if you don't get involved, what happens? Then we sit down and complain. Amir al-Mu'minin Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam talks about this issue. Apathy is not the solution to the problems that we see. You go anywhere, you will see differences. What happened when people, have this sense of apathy? According to the words of our first Imam, he says, do not abandon Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. Otherwise, Allah will impose the evil ones among you over you. And then you will sit down praying against them, and your prayers will not be answered. Why will Allah not answer your prayers? Because He will say, you didn't do your part. Where was Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar? Did you get involved? Did you try to reform from within or not? And so that is the method that we have to go in. Yes, there are problems. Problems would happen. There is no ideal society, as I said. But the answer does not lie in apathy. The answer lies in involvement. And we have beautiful, examples, one after another, of what to do when we see problems within the community. Salawat. Go to Surah Al-Hujurat, Surah number 49 of the Quran. If you look at ayat number 9 to 12, one after another, talks about a community. And the ayat begins, إِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. That if two groups from the mu'mineen fight against one another, of course here the word is qital, taking out sword, but it means all kinds of disputes. If two groups from the mu'mineen have problem, فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. What is your role? To run away? No, you have to get involved. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. Try to make peace between the two groups. فَإِن بَغَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا عَلَى الْأُخْرَى فَقَاتِلُوا الَّتِي تَبْغِي حَتَّى تَفِيَ إِلَى الْأَمْرِ اللَّهِ. And if one group is being unjust to the other, then you have to actually fight, oppose that group until it comes in to accept the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if they agree to sit down on the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make peace, فَإِنْ فَاءَتْ فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. Then make peace between the two groups. بِالْعَدْلِ وَاقْسِطُوا. Make peace on the basis of justice and be fair. Inna Allah yuhibbul muqsitin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who are fair. As if somebody will ask a question, but why should we get involved? After these ayats, the question will come, but why? What has this to do with me? The answer lies in the following ayat. Innamal mu'minuna ikhwa. The believers are brethren of one another. And if you see a problem, you have to get involved. If two groups have a problem, you as a brother and who are part of that community, you have to get involved. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. You have to make peace between the two groups of brothers. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. And fear Allah so that He may have mercy upon you. And this is, this is not a matter of debate or discussion. This is there. These are the ayats of Quran I'm presenting to you directly. And even the method of how do we get involved, the language that we have to use, the attitude that you have to adapt with one another, even if we have disagreements, how do we express that? The ayat after these two ayats in Surah Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it. Is talking to us as a community. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا يَسْخَرُ قَوْمٍ مِّنْ قَوْمٍ عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُونُوا خَيْرًا مِّنْهُمْ. It's a long ayat, I'm just summarizing it. Number one, do not ridicule one another. You can have a discussion with somebody, disagreement with any opinion or a decision made, express it in a polite manner. Do not ridicule other group or other people. Because you don't know what is inside of them. Maybe they are better than you. And then as if to emphasize this point, Allah repeats the same words for women especially. وَلَا نِسَاءٌ مِّن نِسَاءٍ عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُنَّ خَيْرًا مِّنْهُنَّ. That they also should be careful not to ridicule, not to do, yaskhara means, I think even in Gujarati, what do you say, maskhara? To basically ridicule somebody, to put somebody down. So the very first thing is the language that you are using in the discussion, even disagreement that you have, there should be no sakhariya there. وَلَا تَلْمِزُوا أَنفُسِكُمْ. And do not always look for blaming one another. It's interesting that Allah uses the word anfusakum. Do not blame yourselves. It doesn't mean me. Even when I'm blaming somebody else, he is part of my brethren, part of my community. So do not blame, do not always be there, pointing fingers towards one another. وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ بِئْسَ الْإِسْمُ الْفُسُوقُ بَعْدَ الْإِيمَانِ. And do not use nicknames and labels, alqab. Where are we? We are so easy. When we don't like somebody or somebody's decision or opinion, all the labels come out. And وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ. Do not use the labels. بِئْسَ ism al-fusuq ba'd al-iman. When somebody has iman, to put a label on that person. After iman is fisq. This is a sin. And then the ayat goes on, the next one. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ishtanibu kathiran min adh-dhann. Because all these depends on the mental attitude. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you who believe, refrain from majority of suspicions. So we have to work from inside. The mental attitude should be positive. Give the chance to the other to explain why they did it. Do not always just go to this accusation that, oh, he had a wrong motive. No. Try to see whether that person, whatever decision was made, maybe there was a right motive behind it. So do not exercise what is known as su'uz-zan, to be always suspicious about what others are doing. وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا. And do not spy. Do not try to dig up dirt about others. وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا. And do not backbite one another in the context of the community. And this is the end result. If the mind is clear, there will be no process of digging out dirt, and then there will be no issue of ghiba. These are all connected one to another. And finally the ayat goes on, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa unsa. Allah says, I have created all of you from one man and woman, Adam and Hawa. All of you, I made you into tribes so that you may know one another easily. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The best among one is the one who is the most pious and righteous. Taqwa is the standard. And when you look at all these ayat together, you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the akhlaq that we have to have when we get involved in the community affairs. And if we have that, then we will be able to deal with this all negativity which is putting the youths and the young adults away from the affairs of the community. Salawat. If you look at the issue of ghibat, rumors, mashallah, with the modern technology, even the means of all these sins of this kind spread so wide and fast. You have to be careful about it. I know one of the visitors, speakers here during the Muharram Safar time talked about this, what is known as e-ghibat. It's not just a joke. I think he used a very appropriate term. Yes, internet is very good. Email is a very good and fast means of communication, but it also can become a very fast means of spreading rumors or doing ghibat. At least before that it was limited. Now the level of guna is going there, and there is no way of taking it back. There was a priest. Somebody came to his door and he said, I've come to ask forgiveness of you, because I had said bad things about you behind you, and he says, and I regret, so I've come now to ask for forgiveness. He said, just hold on. He goes inside his home, brought a pillow which was made of feathers. And he says, I would like you to take this to the center square of the town and rip open the pillow and let the feather fly in the air. And then I want you to go and gather all those feathers which are flying in the air. He says, this is what you have done to my reputation. Before you do that, you have to think about it. And so when we talk about rumors, what was the biggest, hurtful act done against Imam Hassan? This is Muawiyah's tactic. He had sent Qais bin Sa'ad, his loyal companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, as the second in command under Ubaidullah bin Abbas. And they were sent to the front to confront Muawiyah's army. Imam camped with the rest of the army at his headquarters in another place. Ubaidullah ibn Abbas, and I'm just summarizing it because my point is a moral issue, not the history here. Ubaidullah ibn Abbas was bribed by Muawiyah. He changed sides. Qais bin Sa'ad becomes the commander. And he was a very powerful speaker who was able to bring up the morale of the army under him, because their morale went down when they heard that our commander has changed sides. He has been bought by Muawiyah. So he gave a very rousing, speech, boosted their morale, got them ready to fight against Muawiyah's forces. Those who wanted to go towards Muawiyah had already left. But then Muawiyah, with the rest who could not be bought or who did not change side, what did he do? He sent his spies, 2 groups of them. One went to the campsite of Qais bin Sa'ad at the front, and they started circulating rumors that, oh, you guys are sitting here in the front and you want to fight against Muawiyah, while your Imam at the back has already made peace with Muawiyah, and nothing had yet happened. Then they sent some people, spies among the troops who were with Imam Hassan, that you are sitting here getting ready to go and fight against Muawiyah. You don't know that Qais bin Sa'ad and his people have already joined Muawiyah. And what happened? Other than those who were firm in their Iman, true Shias of Ali bin Abi Talib, all of them who were kind of neutral or weak in their faith or had joined for other motives, all of them started abandoning. And so this issue of spreading rumors, this is Muawiyah's politics. We have to learn. Let us not do things, be, very productive even in our criticism of one another. Talk about issues. Don't use labels. And if you don't know about an issue, don't speak about it. Because once Imam Hassan alayhi salam, salawat he was asked, what is the difference between haqq and batil? You know the answer he gave? He says 4 fingers. He was asked to explain. He said, put your 4 fingers here. What do you hear and what do you see? Not everything that you hear is true, but many things that you see is true. And that is the difference between haqq and batil. And so it's not only what we say. Even when we write things, we have to be careful, because ultimately we are responsible for our words on the day of Qiyamah. And there, don't try to be clever. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that day, I will not ask you. I'll put a seal on your mouth. It is your hands, your limbs which will speak and testify. So let's not be, try to be smart on the day of Qiyamah. Let us see what we say, what we do, and how we do it. In the name of Imam Hassan, make that commitment that you will get involved. You will get involved in spite of all the negativity that you see, but you will try to reform from within rather than adapt this apathy and indifference when it comes to the affairs and the issues about our community. Because Islam is not a religion of individuals, it is a religion of a community. Salawat. शहज़ादे अमन की विलादत में, चूँकि ये शहज़ादे कहलाते हैं, ज़िंदगी इन्होंने पूरी गुजारी है, लेकिन हमारे जहन में वो जवानी का तसव्वुर आता है, और जवानों के बारे में कुछ गुफ्तगू आज हमने की है। और इसी सिलसिले में इमाम हसन अलैहिस्सलाम की एक और रिवायत आपके सामने पेश करके हम ख़त्म करना चाहेंगे कि पॉलिटिक्स का मतलब क्या है, सियासत क्या है, किसे कहते हैं। किसी ने इमाम हसन से पूछा कि आप ज़रा डिफ़ाइन करिए सियासत क्या है, पॉलिटिक्स क्या है। क्योंकि पॉलिटिक्स से गुरेज नहीं है, वी कैन नॉट रन अवे फ्रॉम इट। सिर्फ ये हमें देखना है कि हम जिस पॉलिटिक्स को अपना रहे हैं वो पॉजिटिव है, नेगेटिव है, सही है या गलत है। اس لیے کہ پولیٹکس علوی پولیٹکس بھی ہو سکتی ہے، پولیٹکس اموی اور معاویہ کی پولیٹکس بھی ہو سکتی ہے. تو اٹ ڈیپینڈس کس پرنسپل کے بنیاد پر آپ عمل کر رہے ہیں. امام حسن نے جو ڈیفائن کیا ہے پولیٹکس کو بہت ہی مختصر انداز میں، ہی ترعى حقوق اللہ و حقوق الاحیاء و حقوق الاموات، کہ آپ جو ہیں you should respect and honor the rights of Allah, the rights of the people who are alive and the rights of the people who are dead. حق اللہ پہلے ہے، پھر جو زندہ لوگ ہیں ان کا حق، اور پھر جو گزر چکے ہیں ان کا حق. پھر امام نے ڈیفائن کیا، اما فاما حقوق اللہ فاداء ما طلب والاجتناب عما نہى. حق اللہ کی ادائیگی اس میں ہوتی ہے، یعنی ایز اے کمیونٹی اگر ہم سیاست کی بات کرتے ہیں تو اس کے ایک پلر یہ ہے کہ ہم اللہ کے حق کو ادا کریں، یعنی جو حکم ملا ہے، جو عمل کرنا ہے اس پر عمل کرے، اور جن چیزوں سے روکا گیا ہے اس سے ہم دور رہیں. اما حقوق الاحیاء، جو زندہ لوگ ہیں ان کا حق کیا ہے؟ فہی ان تقوم بواجبک نحو اخوانک، تم پر واجب ہے کہ جو اوبلیگیٹری حقوق ہیں تمہارے بردر ان فیتھ کے ان کو پورا کرو. ولا تتأخر عن خدمت امتک، and do not delay in serving your community. اپنی امت کی خدمت سے تاخیر مت کرو. اور جو لیڈرز کی بات ہوتی ہے ان کے بارے میں بھی کہا ہے وَأَن تُخْلِصَ لِوَلِيِّ الْأَمْرِ مَا أَخْلَصَ لِأُمَّتِهِ. اگر لیڈر کمیونٹی کے ساتھ سنسیئر ہے تو لیڈر کے ساتھ بھی سنسیئرٹی کے ساتھ کام کرو. وَأَن تَرْفَعَ عَقِيرَتَكَ فِي وَجْهِهِ إِذَا حَادَ عَنِ الطَّرِيقِ السَّوِيِّ. لیکن اگر لیڈر جو ہے کرپٹ ہو جاتا ہے، منحرف ہو جاتا ہے، صحیح راستے سے ہٹ جائے تو پھر تمہیں اس کی مخالفت کرنی ہوگی. وَأَمَّا حُقُوقُ الْأَمْوَاتِ فَهِيَ أَن تَذْكُرَ خَيْرَاتُهُمْ وَتَتَغَاضَ عَن مَسَاوِيهِمْ فَإِنَّ لَهُمْ رَبًّا يُحَاسِبُهُمْ. اور جو گزر چکے ہیں وہ گزر چکے ہیں، ان کے نیکیوں کو یاد کرو، ان کے غلطیوں کو بھول جاؤ، اس لیے کہ ان کا ایک رب ہے جو ان کا حساب کتاب کرنے والا ہے. صلوات پڑھنے پر یہ نہیں ہے کہ امام حسن جو ہے بہت ہی سافٹ تھے اور وہ سخت الفاظ نہیں جانتے تھے، نہیں. بہت سی مثالیں ہیں، سن چکے ہیں آپ لوگ پہلے بھی. لیکن امام جب بھی اپنوں سے بات کرتے تھے، وہ لوگ بھی کہ جو رانگ فلی امام سے کلام کرتے تھے، حجر ابن عدی جیسے اچھے لوگ، اچھے شیعہ تھے، وفادار تھے، لیکن امام کے صلح کے مصلحت کو نہیں سمجھے تھے. انہوں نے آ کے امام سے جس طرح سے گفتگو کی ہے، بے ادبی کی بات کی طرح سے، بالکل لینگویج میں جو ہے کوئی ادب و لحاظ نہیں تھا. لیکن یہ رحمت کا مظاہرہ امام نے کیا ہے، حلم کا مظاہرہ کیا ہے کہ جب اپنوں سے بات کرتے تھے جن کے ذہن میں تصور صحیح نہیں تھا، لیکن امام جانتے تھے کہ ان کے دل میں کوئی باطل بات نہیں ہے، کوئی خباثت نہیں ہے، مخلص لوگ ہیں لیکن they don't understand the realities. تو پھر ان کو نرمی کے ساتھ امام بیٹھ کے ان کو سمجھاتے تھے اور ان سے بات کرتے تھے. لیکن جب دشمن کی بات ہوتی تھی، عمرو بن عاص کے ساتھ، خود معاویہ کے ساتھ، امام کے جملے بہت ہی سخت ہوا کرتے تھے. تو بات یہ ہے کہ ہمیں اپنی لینگویج کو دیکھنا ہے. آپس میں جب ہم برتاؤ کرتے ہیں امام حسن کی طرح برتاؤ کریں، سختیوں کو دشمن کے لیے رکھیں. لیکن جب آپس میں بات کرتے ہیں اختلاف کی بنیاد پر، ڈفرینس آف اوپینینز کے باوجود بھی کم سے کم نرمی سے بات کریں، برادرانہ انداز اپنائیں. اور یہی در حقیقت سیرت ہے امام حسن مجتبیٰ علیہ السلام کی. صلوات کرنے پر خداوندہ ہماری توفیقات میں اضافہ فرما، ہمارے گناہوں کو معاف فرما. بقیہ ماہ رمضان جتنے ہیں ان کے برکات کو ہمیں شامل حال فرما، اور جو عبادات ہیں اس کو پورا کرنے کی بھی توفیق عنایت فرما. امام کے ظہور میں تعجل فرما. ربنا تقبل منا انت السمیع العلیم.